how to use the new shape features in Photoshop CC 2020. Custom shapes have been around since Photoshop 6. The Shapes panel is more like the Brushes panel now. The functionality of the Custom Shapes tool has not changed. The panel has. Select the Custom Shape tool and go to the Custom Shapes panel. You will now see that groups have been added, so you can group shapes together. You can also see some new shapes have been added: trees, boats, flowers, etc. The right side menu also includes import and export of shapes, so you can quickly import custom shape files. You can apply the shapes just as before, as paths, pixels and shape layers. However, I'm going to use the Shapes panel. Go to the Window menu and Shapes. You can go to the right side menu and increase the size of the thumbnails. Makes it easier to see the shapes. The right side menu includes many features, such as import and export, etc. Select a shape in the Shapes panel and drag to the document. You can then resize the vector design. Once you're happy, press Return or click the OK button at the top of the screen. You can also move the shapes around, so select a preset and then drag into another group, or move it around the current group. You can also select multiple shapes and then move multiple shapes. Drag them from one group to another group. You can now put all your favourite shapes into a single group for ease of access. You can also move groups. When you import shapes, a CSH file, they're imported into a group with the same name. You can also create new groups via the menu at the top. New shape group, give it a name, click OK. So I now have Shapes 3. You can of course call it anything else. The shape group doesn't need a shape, but you can drag shapes into it. Select a single shape or multiple shapes and drag into the group. You can add many new groups to the panel via this method. Select a shape, right-click and select Rename or Delete if you want to rename it or delete it. You can do the same via the Shapes menu, right side menu. If you select a shape, you will be offered Rename Shape. If you select a group, you will be offered Rename Group and Delete Group. The right side menu also offers the feature to show recent shapes. Personally, I never use that feature. There is also a Restore feature if you want to return the panel to the default. But what if you want to bring in additional shapes? You might have hundreds and hundreds of CSH files that you want to use. Before, it was a slightly cumbersome approach. Much easier now with the Import Shapes feature. That imports custom shapes. Select that and you can browse for CSH files. I've already imported some files. You can see them displayed as groups, GX for graphic extras. If you want to group them together, you can drag those groups. Go to the Import Shapes and browse for the files. Select a file and click OK. You'll notice that once it's imported at the bottom of the panel. You can repeat that with multiple CSH files. So whole loads of shapes can be imported. All the files are imported as separate groups and you can find them at the bottom of the panel. If you wish, you can drag all of the shapes from one group into another group to create a massive group of all the imported shapes. Up to you. You can now rename the shapes, you can delete the shapes, and you can also drag the shapes into the document. Resize the shape and click OK. The shape is added with the current colours. As a vector design, you can rotate and scale it again. You can repeat this over and over again with all of the new imported shapes. You can also export the shapes. Select one shape or select multiple shapes. Go to the right side menu and select the Export Shapes command. That will export only those designs to a CSH file, which can then be used in other projects. You can also select an entire group and then use the same Export Shapes command. All the shapes in that group will then be exported. The Shapes panel has a lot of functionality for moving shapes around and also grouping them. When you select the Custom Shapes tool, you have the Custom Shapes panel also at the top of the screen. When you come to use the Custom Shapes tool, the Shapes panel is ignored. The shape comes from the Custom Shapes panel and not the Shapes panel, whether you selected something or not. You can just drag on the screen as usual. You may find it easier just to use the Shapes panel to drag the shape onto the document. There are some limitations though with the Shapes panel. The shape can only be added as a shape layer, not a pixel or path. Sadly, the Shapes panel has no feature to default to one of those options. With the Custom Shape tool selected, you can go and change the colour, the fill and the stroke. When you next drag a design from the Shapes panel, it will use that fill and stroke. Drag any of the shapes and they will have the same fill and stroke. You can also add the current custom shape to your panel. This can be done by right-clicking the shape or by using the Edit menu and Define Custom Shape. The entire shape needs to be selected. If not, you will find the Edit menu Define Custom Shape is not available. Use the Direct Selection tool to select the entire shape. Then right-click and Define Custom Shape. Give the shape a name, click OK. The shape is added to the Shapes panel. It is added next to the last shape used. Go to the top of the Shapes panel and select the first shape. Go back to the shape and use the right click to define the custom shape. The shape is now added next to the arrow in my case. You can always select the shape and move it around to another group. If you select a group but not a shape, the newly defined custom shape will be added to the end of the group. Again, you can reposition it by dragging it at any point. I will also be doing videos about the styles, patterns, etc. I hope you have found this tutorial about the new Shapes feature of interest. I'm always adding new tutorials about Photoshop, Illustrator, etc. Please subscribe to the Graphic Extras channel. Please add a comment or two, a dislike or like. Thank you very much.